Здравствуйте, товарищи, and welcome back to another episode of our glorious Workers and Resources Soviet Republic Let's Play. Yet another wondrous day lies ahead of our beautiful nation and the systems upon which it is built as we arrive at a massive milestone, not just for our own nation, but also for the game itself. I am, of course, talking about, folks, the fact that we are at episode 150. Absolutely ludicrous, absolutely ridiculous to think about. This was supposed to be a mini-series that lasted no more than 10 episodes, and yet here we are. So, I want to first say a massive thanks to all of you that have been watching along and joining in on this journey as we continue to grow a, prosperous nation. I mean, it is certainly prosperous now, though the road has certainly been bumpy at times. So a massive thanks again to all of you that have joined in on this journey and that have, sort of kept this series going for so very long. Honestly, I've been having so much fun with it, and I'm so happy to see that y'all have been having fun with it as well. And it seems, looking at how these last handful of episodes have continued to go, we are still going strong. So yes, episode 150 today, episode 300 in the near future, perhaps. I mean, of course, as always, that depends entirely on all of you, but don't hesitate to keep letting me know with those likes and comments if you would like to see this series continue. But that's not all, folks. That is not all we're celebrating today as we fly around our beautiful nation. There is, of course, also the new update. It is now out in beta, and I have that beta installed so that we can take a look at all of the interesting new facets that are coming to the game, to the general build in the very near future, I would imagine. If you want to get in on the beta, all you have to do is hop onto Steam and sort of activate the beta build. Right-click on the game's install, go to Properties, and choose the beta build over here. To dive into it, just as I'm going to do today. Ironically, or perhaps fittingly, the beta, or the new update rather, I should say, is all about tourism. And the reason why I say it's ironic and or fitting is because today's episode, or at least part of today's episode, will be dedicated to our own tour of everything we have built. Folks, without any time to waste, let's get this party started, shall we? I am very excited to go over the new updates. I am very excited to do a tour of the nation as well. These things will take a little bit of time, so I will have some timestamps down below so you can kind of skip around if you would like to. I think what we're going to do first is touch on the new update because it is, there's so much to talk about. I played around with it a little bit to make sure that I knew how it all worked because there are a lot of new systems coming into play. And honestly, I just want to say, kudos to the developer. That is one of the main aspects that has kept this series alive as well. I think not just for me from the perspective of playing it, but also for you from the perspective of watching it. I mean, let me know if I'm wrong, but the fact that there is this consistency of new challenges that get added to the game, just new layers that force us to retrofit elements or try to experiment with new options. That's really kept me on my toes, and it's really fantastic to see early access done this way. Early access done right is what I often talk about, and so again, just sort of kudos to the developers because it's it's fantastic. There's really no other way to put it. And this update is ridiculous with how many new pieces there really are. So we're going to talk about that first, and then before we dive into our tour of the nation, I just want to make sure that everything over here is in sort of a running order, as it were, because I want this all to be constructed as we're doing our tour. That way we might actually see some more progress here than initially anticipated. We have all the money we could possibly need to just pay for all this, but it's cool to build things, as the nation as well from time to time. So we'll see how much progress we make during the tour. After the tour, I will perhaps want to take a look at our situation over here with regards to more food production, and then we'll come back here and just kind of auto-build everything, I think. That's just sort of the lay of the land over here. Sorry, I know I like to talk about plans, and then who knows if they actually come through or not. So I'm going to set that aside, and let's get to it, shall we? So, like I said, this update focuses on tourism, and we've spoken previously, and in fact just in the last session, about how this is going to be a bit of a tourist hub. And fortunately, it does look like that is still very much a possibility. Now, okay, calling it a hub is a bit of a misnomer, and that was never actually the plan. That was a slip of the tongue. It is going to be a touristy spot, but not a hub. Hub has, I don't know. There's a bigger implication to hub, I think. I don't know. Well, anyway, like I was saying, fortunately, we can still stick with that plan. Now, the first thing to touch on with this tourism update, I would say, is the fact that there's a whole new category of buildings called tourism. And this includes, well, some very interesting, some aspects, actually. So first of all, there are hotels. There's a small hotel, there's a city hotel, there's a mountain hotel. So the small hotel, of course, you know, for, wasn't expecting it. You know, a lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting is included here. But like a small hotel, you could put into like a, you know, like a rural center, or like a smaller, like urban outskirts and things like that. You've got your city hotels as well. Like I can totally see these, you know, city hotels being somewhere, you know, close to like an exhibition hall kind of a thing. You know, where like I was gonna say Fan Expo as an example because it's so normal to me as a Torontonian to talk about Fan Expo, but like Comic-Con, Fan Expo is like a Comic-Con equivalent in Toronto. But like, you know, Comic-Con, when that happens, you've got like these hotels, like 20 hotels around the convention center where other things happen as well, and those hotels all fill up. You know, so that's what this like city hotel makes me think of. And there's also the mountain hotel, which is, you know, for like skiing, like chalet type stuff, I guess. Pretty fun models as well. I'm not gonna like build them just for the sake of showing them, but we will be experimenting with all of these over the course of this Let's Play series, you know, with how long it's inevitably getting. We're inevitably going to be touching on some of these things. So those are the hotels, and you can see they have star ratings. Now, from my understanding, the star ratings are actually impacted by a couple of things when you actually go to place these buildings down. Like you can see, this is a 1.8 expected visitor score. That's the star rating. Whereas if we go right back down to over here, I think we saw 1.5. And that rating is something that applies across the board. All of these have attraction ratings or star ratings, whatever you want to call them, whatever I end up calling them. And they're impacted by, again, from my understanding, local pollution, how, you know, clean the space is, how what the views are like, what other buildings are nearby. So that's, again, more than I was expecting. That's really quite cool, because now you really have to think about, okay, well, how do these things come together alongside, you know, statues and you know, forestry and industry? How do we avoid a disappointing experience for our tourists and ensure that rating is as high as possible? Because I assume, I don't know for a fact yet, because I haven't been able to play with it that much, but I assume that will determine how many tourists we actually bring to the nation and where they go and how much they're willing to spend. Now, another thing to touch on is you'll notice that these hotels all provide food, meat, and alcohol. That's if the guests want to stay at the hotels to eat, they can do it there. Otherwise, they'll be going to some of the various attractions. So one thing to touch on as we get into the attractions is that not only do they fulfill tourist requirements or tourist desires, but they also can fulfill citizens' desires. So, for example, we have the indoor pool as the first one we're going to look at. The indoor pool is not just, you know, for tourists who are looking to have a swim, but they're also for citizens who want to get some fitness in terms of their sports requirements, right? We have all these requirements for citizens. Oh, this screen has changed a little bit as well, hasn't it? It feels... something feels different about it. Like the camera has changed as well. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but the camera zoom has like momentum to it. So I'm sure there's a lot of like little things here and there as well. But this definitely, there's something up here and I can't spot what it is. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just, you know, making it up. Oh, this is new. This is new, right? The all button has got to be new. And maybe that's what's making everything feel a little different. Anyway, well, that's cool. Oh man, that's really cool. I'm so glad. Wasn't I like just talking about how I'd like to be able to make it easier to customize our thing? Well, I mean, it's not exactly what I was talking about, but you know, it's pretty dope still. I mean, it's kind of what I was hoping for, really. Anyway, sorry, letting myself get distracted. So yeah, these needs will also be fulfilled by the tourist element. So again, there's the indoor pool, which is good for sports interest. The gallery of art, I'm guessing here, has to do with entertainment, or maybe, oh no, you know what? It's probably going to be culture, right? I would expect it falls into cultural enjoyment, which I'm misnaming entertainment because that's the symbol for entertainment in my head always. The symbol for theater actually. But yeah, so that's I imagine that's where that would fall into. The gallery of art. Again, these aren't very large buildings or anything, which is nice. I mean, some of them are. There are some bigger buildings, but that means we are able to fit some cool things into this space over here. There's the carousel over here, and you can see there's an attraction type as well. And from my understanding, tourists who arrive, they have different kinds of interests, so different kinds of tourists will be looking for different kinds of attractions, and one tourist will not return to the same attraction, not type, but the same physical attraction, multiple days in a row. They want to get some variety. So if I'm arriving, let's say for carousels, I'm not exactly how it works, but I'm trying to communicate, briefly, and then we'll be experimenting and seeing it in action relatively soon. This, I think, is the next challenge I want to tackle for a couple of reasons, and I'll explain why in a bit. So, if I'm coming here looking for this kind of entertainment, right, I've got 1, 2, 3 options here, and I would rather go to one of each than go to the same one 3 days in a row. Obviously, this is like, how many times can you go to the same place? Unless it's a massive, you can't see, if you ask me, you can't see all of Versailles in one day, for example, but that's a whole different story. So tourists don't want to go back to the same thing multiple days in a row. So you want to have a bit of variety because, again, as they arrive, they will, as they engage, they will spend money. So you want to make sure if they have come to you, you want to make sure that they are constantly spending money. Whether they are Soviet tourists or Western tourists, you want to make sure they're constantly spending money. From my understanding, your own citizens do not pay for using these activities, but tourists, I assume, are the source of that income. Then there is the beach cafe / bar. Doesn't have to be placed at the beach, and this also fulfills food and alcohol. Oh no, sorry, this only fulfills alcohol requirements. We have other buildings that also do food requirements, and again, it applies to citizens as well. There's the National Uprising Museum. Now, something like the National Uprising Museum, and there's a couple of things with that theme I would love to establish near our party headquarters. I feel like we can rework this space a little bit. These parking lots, for example, maybe get pushed down over here, and we put this National Uprising Museum somewhere over here. And again, like I said, there's a couple of things with that kind of theme to them. We've got the View Cafe / bar. This is also, again, able to fulfill the alcohol needs of our people. Not that we have much of that really. But this will do that as well. Look at that. It's quite nice, actually, the details. It's quite a nice building as well. I'm not sure if it's based on something, but, it's a good look. And let's get a closer look, actually, at the National Uprising Museum. They're not just blocky buildings. There's some style and stuff to them, so quite pleased with all that. There's the Panorama Restaurant. So this requires food and meat, and, of course, again, supplies it to our citizens as well. And look at that beautiful building. Don't you think this would look fantastic, to mirror our headquarters here, to have this somewhere over here, and you get a nice panorama of the capital city. Again, those of you that were asking, there were some questions about this. Veteringrad is technically the capital, maybe not our economic hub, but our political capital for sure. Whereas Uprisinggrad at present, at least, is probably our economic capital. But from a nice vantage point over here, you get a nice panorama kind of look. And there's actually I'm getting ahead of myself. There's the Museum of the Republic as well. Again, I assume that is cultural stuff that would also fit very nicely thematically over here, like the Museum of the Republic and the National Uprising Museum. I think they work nicely together. And for folks who are curious about the museum, approach to tourism, having them in close proximity isn't a bad idea. We also have the Palace of Communism, which, look at this building. Look at this building. That's pretty dope. And I think this also fits nicely thematically in this area. I'm thinking we do the Palace of Communism for sure, and the National Uprising Museum for sure, and kind of rework the rest of this space. And have some of the other things as well, like an indoor pool and things like that as well for other touristy attractions. But that's what I'm thinking we do over here. And there's the Republic Theater as well, which I'll want to put in a couple of spots. Because again, I'm sure this fills up cultural demands of the people, and is also just a really cool building. I like it, at least. I like how this looks as well. And this could fit by Uprising Grad as well, and it could just be used as a regular building. It doesn't have to be exclusive to our sort of tourist centers. Well, I don't want to build little, like, cordoned off areas. It's like where, you know, oh yeah, tourists can go over there, but don't look down the street that way. That's not the kind of nation we are, right? Then there are the, well, there's a couple of, there's another carousel type building over here, which is a Ferris wheel. And this actually, again, I can very happily report, fits quite nicely into this space as well. We will have to do maybe a little bit of adjusting with our power lines especially, but with a little bit of flattening, I should be able to fit this in the area over here. And of course, it's a Ferris wheel, so I think we're all fairly familiar with how that works. It's not so big that I feel like it makes a nice coastal element. So we might try that as well. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see about that. Maybe more likely by St. Partia or something. But then there is the sight tower over here, which I think would make a nice viewpoint, I suppose, from somewhere up on high. Like, we've got these little mountain tops over here. It'd be quite cool to establish the sight tower up top over here. And so folks who want, you know, quite the view of our, again, like I was saying earlier, economic capital would get quite the view over here. A little bit of smoke off in the distance from those smokestacks, and they could look up this way to see the smaller kind of rural lifestyle, a bit of industry over here. I don't know. I feel like this is a cool spot for a viewing spot. There's the other sight tower as well, so a bit of variety over here too. And they look like they are relatively. Oh, you know, this one's a little bit larger. Oh yeah, it's a give and take between the costs and value between these two. But yeah, I thought this would be pretty neat, and I don't think I can see the star value over here until we've got it flattened, so well, whatever, it's fine. Then there are slightly larger things. The Pyramid Museum, I feel, is a bit of a dig at the pyramid outside the Louvre, maybe. It looks nothing like it, but, you know, Pyramid Museum, just, well, those words side by side make me think of only one thing. Quite a cool construct, though. Still has that, you know, very kind of, I don't know, I hesitate to call it brutalist entirely, but it certainly has, you know, feelings. It's a weird way to put it, but, you know, it looks Soviet. It looks communist, I guess. I quite like it, actually. It's quite an interesting building, and that's yet another museum type, but it's not intrinsically connected to things like the Uprising or the Republic or communism, so it can, you know, maybe it's an art museum we can put down anywhere. Then there is the zoo, which, you know, of course we have to build. Now it's kind of interesting with the zoo. It's like, where do we, as I zoom in to kind of give you all a look. Oh, what is that? Is that a polar bear? It looks like a polar bear. Yeah, that would make sense, I suppose. But yeah, oh, and a giraffe, eh? Small enclosures. Yeah, I should do a crossover with my Planet Zoo series, eh? But in just as a reference, in Toronto, the zoo is rather far away from the city, so to speak. It's still in Toronto, but it's in the outskirts. Like, if you live in downtown Toronto, you have to kind of travel quite a bit to get to the zoo. So I wonder if we want to recreate that. It's nicer for the animals. It might be a nicer view, though it is harder to get to. Or if we want to do one of those, you know, old-fashioned city zoos and just, like, you know, throw it in the city and it's a zoo in the middle of a very busy kind of area. I don't know. Something to think about. But there is the zoo, and then there is the beach as well, which I imagine, yes, you do have to have at least partially in the water. So yet another thing that might instead be built up over here. You know, we got a nice big space over here. This could be a nice, you know, oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm liking that idea of this being sort of a tourist hub by Veterinkagrad, and we have our like smaller touristy areas around the nation. But yeah, this of course needs some water. I see a little bit of yellow flashing over here. Placing these perfectly. There we go. So yeah, you can see there's like a bit of a spot here to lounge. We've got some beach balls and whatnot. Again, nice, nifty little details here and there. And it falls under pools and beaches, the same as the indoor pool. Now, I cannot wait for modders to start having their, you know, field days, as it were, and building more, like, variety of stuff. This is already a good variety to start with, but you know, modding for a game like this just elevates it completely. So that's all the tourist elements. We've talked about the various categories, how star ratings work. We've talked about our own plans for our nation as it currently stands, how we might want to establish some of these things. But let us also discuss how tourists actually get here. We've talked about where they go. We've talked about how they affect our economy. But let's now talk about how they arrive. Now, one of the ways, I assume, I haven't tested this actually, it just occurred to me that I didn't test this, but I assume a passenger harbor, which has already been in the game since the ship update, I assume guests can arrive, I keep calling them guests because I think about Planet Zoo and I think about people arriving. I assume tourists can arrive through the passenger harbors. I do not know for sure. If anybody does, feel free to let me know in the comments. But yeah, it completely slipped my mind to test that out because I was only looking at the newest elements, which in the case of our infrastructure, you might have noticed this a couple times already, airplanes. Now, interestingly, choppers are not yet in yet. If we go over the list of lines, you can see helicopter lines are planned. They're going to be a thing, and this has been in here for a while, so I'm very curious about that. But I'll talk about that. Let's talk about airplanes. This is infinitely more than I was expecting. The way air travel works, I don't know why I'm surprised. This game has constantly made things deeper than one would expect them to be. Again, kudos. So I don't know why I'm surprised, and yet here we are. So how does this work? Now, what I'm thinking for our own selves, by the way, for our nation, is we'll probably put our airport, we'll probably have a couple of airports, right? Because it's a country. Again, it's not a city builder, this is a nation builder. So we'll have our Veterinkograd airport. Maybe we name it after somebody or something. Maybe we do something fancy with it, right? But we'll have our capital city airport over here, which will primarily be a tourist airport. It'll also allow us, I think, to move people to any small airport that I might want to establish down over here. Like we might want to establish a smaller airport, somewhere outside of Kolata or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but I know the first airport I want to build is going to be at Veterinkograd, from where tourists will be able to go to these museums and stuff we want to establish over here. And I want to figure out how we can get tourists from there down to Uprisinggrad. Like I'm so excited to figure this stuff out. So the way it works is, let's use this as a playground here to show. You need to build a airport terminal. So obviously you can do passengers and you can also do cargo. Cargo airport terminals require those pipelines are for fuel, and then there's of course the factory connections to actually bring cargo to the terminal. You can export, you can import, so it's a part of your economy, and you can also of course ship goods from city to city internally, or if we're able to access iron somewhere, we want to mine it and process it there and then ship it to a different part of the country, we can. Because again, never forget how massive the maps actually are. And this really opens up some options for us. So whether we put down a cargo or a passenger terminal, and whether we put them down separately or together, because a lot of airports are both, you have to put one down. It requires a road connection, it requires fuel, of course, for the planes themselves, and passenger footpath connections as well, so you pop that down. Then you attach to it airplane parking. Airplane parking comes in a few different forms. There's the small, there's the medium, there's the little bit bigger, and then there's the large. Couldn't think of a name on this, but extra small, medium, large, I suppose. And then there's the 3 side by side, just for organization. These actually attach to the side of your terminal. And that's how they kind of drop people off at the terminals or drop cargo off at the terminal. So the airport terminal and the parking need to be attached. From the parking, you then have to establish a taxiway, right, to taxi the airplane from the from the parking at the terminal to the runway. And naturally, like any major airport, you can have multiple runways. Now, when it comes to determining the required length of a runway, you will have to consider which airplanes you want to use. And I can't show you that right now, but when you have your terminal set up, different airplanes require different runway lengths to take off. Smaller planes that have passenger limits of like 12 or so, they need like runway sizes of 250 meters or so. Whereas larger planes, I think the biggest runway length I've seen is 850 meters. So, you know, it's obviously something to consider, and it makes perfect sense. So you'll want to make sure your runway is the right length. You'll want to make sure you have multiple runways so that you know your smaller planes are using the smaller runways, your larger planes are using the larger runways. When you have a lot of planes going in and out for cargo and for passengers, you want to make sure that they're not waiting for hours on the tarmac because another plane is just making its arrival. It's so cool that this kind of stuff is again in the game. So yeah, you've got your terminal where guests get picked up or dropped off, with the airplane parking attached to the terminal, from where a taxiway takes those airplanes can take the taxiway from the parking to the runway from where they take off and land. And then, when they land, they have to return to their parking that is attached to the terminal from where guests or tourists have now officially arrived. You, of course, need a control tower that is constantly manned to make this all function. They need to be, the employees at a control tower have to be university educated. So that's super important. And there's the airport road connection as well. That is just for construction. It's the road connection so that construction vehicles can arrive and build anything that comes out of this airport road connection, starting with a taxiway. The other thing to touch on is that the airport terminal acts similar to like a bus stop or a train station, where you can assign where guests can go afterwards. Again, guests, I'm sorry. It's going to be a hard habit to break. You can assign where people go from the terminals, just like you do at a bus stop or a train station. However, that has evolved as well. If we take a look at our train station over here really quickly as an example, we now have a new option. Where should tourists go? If we take a look at our trains, we now have a new option to pick up tourists. So now we can start talking about tourist exclusive lines, or passenger tourist mixed lines as well. But in theory, you can make like those like buses that you get on for the purpose of tourism, where like it takes you to tourist spots, on a tour. So we can build those now. That's an actual thing now. So basically what you need to do is, I'm sorry, every couple of minutes I'm going to have to stop to say it's so cool. What you have to do is your airport terminal needs to be within walking distance of bus stops, of train stations, of just ways of connectivity, whether it's a trolley bus or a bus or what have you, so that guests, or passengers, tourists, can walk from the terminal to those stations, and the buses, etc., that come to those stations, the trains, whatever, they pick those tourists up and they take them to, your tourist hubs, your hotels, your museums, what have you. And again, you want to put them into hotels so they can walk to the attractions nearby. It's like, you see what I mean? It's insanely deep. This is why we've been playing this game for 150 episodes, because every so often a new update comes through and it's like, here's another 100 things to think about and do and rejig and rework. Super cool. This is going to be the next challenge we take on, because there's so many parts to it, I think, at least. Let me know if y'all feel differently, but it's new, it's fresh, I'd love to dive into it. I know we were talking about the nuclear city, but I feel like that's a bigger undertaking than some of this tourist stuff. Anyway, so yeah, you've got your tourists arriving. We've talked about how they get distributed. We've talked about how tourists now need to be picked up separately. We've talked about how tourists can be distributed to different areas from the train stations and stuff as well. If we pick this, we can go ahead and add buildings. We can only send them to buses or train platforms. So that's how we have to control their flow towards hotels and sort of sequester them in the right areas. I shouldn't say sequester. We don't want to sequester our tourists, but that's how you kind of control their flow. All right. We've talked about where they go. We talked about where they come from, and we've touched on the airport cargo, like freight planes as well. But where do these planes come from? Where are planes made, you might ask? If we head on over to construction and we head on over to our engineering industry, we can now see that we can build airplanes at the airplane production line. It is a massive building, and of course it requires, a variety of resources to actually build those airplanes. We might want to build this over here. I don't necessarily want to build an airplane right by the airport. Is that a thing? I'm not sure how we ship airplanes though. So that'll be an interesting thing to figure out and play around with. You can see it needs plastics, mechanical components, electronics, and fabric. So everything we have at our vehicle production facilities are required for airplane production as well. So maybe we can find a way to integrate over here, but that would be quite difficult. Something to think about though. It also requires steel, no surprise, and aluminium. And again, I specify aluminium. I know many people say aluminum. There are two different spellings. They are the same thing. There are two different pronunciations. I have all my life said aluminium. I get a lot of comments about how I say dynasty, the British way. I'm sure if I had to say envelope more often, I'd hear about that as well. Aluminium is the quote unquote, British way of saying it. So if that shocks any of you, I hope that's explained the shock away. But yes, aluminium is now a new industry, and it falls under the category of metallurgy, which is a new category altogether. Here we can find our iron mines, iron ore, and steel mills. We can find our aggregate storages and things like that. But we can also now find the dry bulk storage for cement and aluminium oxide. We can find the road pickup and drop off and the railway pickup and drop off locations as well for the cement and aluminium oxide. But before the aluminium actually gets picked up or dropped off anywhere, we have to talk about, of course, the bauxite mine, the bauxite processing plant, the alumina plant, and the aluminium plant. So bauxite mines produce raw bauxite that gets processed into bauxite at the bauxite processing plant. And I mean, these are, again, we need to kind of get a sense of scale over here. So there's your bauxite mine, there's your bauxite processing plant, there is your alumina plant, which takes bauxite, coal, and chemicals. Pretty ideal grounds over here by Petrograd. Takes all those and converts it into aluminium oxide. Again, a pretty large building over here. Barely. What is that? Ooh, you see that at the top right corner there? I don't recognize that. Oh, you know what? I feel like that's connections for these guys, but that's a new icon for sure. All right, that's interesting. Well, I'll have to take a look at that then. But yeah, sorry, and that's the alumina plant, and then that aluminium oxide gets converted into aluminium with the help of chemicals and power. Lots of power. You see, we need an entirely new large power connection. And that's for producing aluminium, which is then, of course, shipped to your factory to make those airplanes, or you can sell it. I believe it is actually quite a valuable resource. Look at that. There's a whole new category of tourism over here as well that you can get an idea of what people feel. Tourists died. Oh my god, I didn't even... Whoa! Ended prematurely. Like, pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. But I was coming here to look at the prices on the global market, and we can see this has now reached 2 pages. Aluminium oxide, you can see the prices over here, and we can also see, I really wish you could organize this by like alphabetical. We've got aluminium over here as well. So yeah, there you go. Oh man, dude, this is pretty cool. We can now actually see the price fluctuations throughout our playthrough. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, and you can see bauxite and raw bauxite over here as well. Pretty cool. All right, fantastic. That's that taken care of. What else? Oh man, there's so much going on. I'm trying to figure out if I've let anything slip by me. I believe I've caught everything. We can also see that we can now see city names on the map as well, which is a little unfortunate. I mean, I guess if we make it larger, that's not as bad. But we can see city names on the map. Oh, and also there's, of course, we need to find bauxite. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? This is actually kind of cool. So bauxite is readily available up in this area over here somewhere. In the water? Or, maybe up over here. Okay. It's also available all the way down over here. I wonder if this is our first need for a cargo airplane. Yeah, for cargo freight planes, I guess. Nonetheless, that's something for the future. That aluminium I want to tap into after we tap into tourism first, because I feel like tourism is very different compared to acquiring a resource and processing the resource. Okay, that lasted longer than I'd initially anticipated, and I apologize for that, but I hope you all enjoyed going through the update. And let me know down below, again, if you would like to see this kind of treatment for future updates as well, or if you would rather not. I like talking about it because, as I was doing, we can talk about our plans and how it pertains to our playthrough as well, while highlighting some of the new elements that we can get excited about moving forward. But if nobody is interested in that, let me know down below, and I will, of course, adjust my approach accordingly. Now, with that done, I think we're ready to touch on our work over here a little bit, because I do need to make some adjustments. I just want to double check this space. I want to commission all this construction, and then we can go on a most glorious tour. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but I have already pre-planned the tour destinations so that we wouldn't spend any time planning the tour while we're actually, recording, to hopefully save some time there and make this session a bit more productive. Now, there was an issue pointed out over here in that my shopping center is connected to the road cargo station as opposed to the warehouse and the meat storage, which, oops, that is obviously a problem. So let's go ahead and sort that out. I think what we can do, rather simply, is... oh, you know what? I also wanted to check conveyor belts. There it is, the dry bulk conveyor connection. Specific. That's the new icon we were seeing. That's the new icon we were seeing with these guys. Huh, cool. All right. You completely slipped me earlier when I was investigating this update. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. But no, that's not why we're here. We're here because we wanted to see the factory connections. And I believe I've caught all the updates, by the way. But if you know that I've missed something, feel free to let me know. But I'm pretty... Oh, right, of course. And the mixed semaphore, which I've touched on previously, but here it is. So now we can actually, do this thing that's been confusing me for quite a while. It's like why it doesn't already exist. So there's the answer. It now exists. So yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of this factory connection over here. This is unfortunate. This is unfortunate because what we need is, like, we can't do this too long, eh? So we do have to restructure this a little bit. That's too bad. Not the end of the world, but that is a little unfortunate. The warehouse, the meat. Yep, cancel you. Oh, that's actually quite a bummer, because we'll have to close off some of the space that I wanted to use for parking lots. That many of you have confirmed that passengers will use will drive to pick up groceries. Let's go ahead and hit play momentarily over here just to get these removed, and let's go ahead and fix this up. Keep it paused for now, because again, I wanna make progress on these things. Okay, so if the warehouse ends up, we got the road over there. Does this really only have the one connection? Hold on a second. How do we work it up over here? Up by the border over here, we have a similar setup for you. Oh, it's just the road cargo station. We do not have a buffer, if you will. See, now doing that allows us to avoid building factory... in that case, we'd have to rebuild what we just unbuilt. But doing that allows us to avoid forklifts, which isn't terrible, which isn't bad. But then we don't need storages down over here. We won't have that surplus stocked up over here, and instead it would be brought from all the way up by, this region over here. Which isn't a problem. I mean, clearly it's working up over here, right? It's working at Cazalis. We have quite the surplus, in fact. I need to start delivering electronics to some of these spots. Oh. Cool. I didn't notice that these shopping centers retroactively have impacts to tourism as well. It makes sense, but I did not expect that. Alright, the playgrounds do not. And I don't think this mod does either. But this is a modded piece of equipment. Oh damn, I'm actually, this does throw me off a little bit. I wish joint warehouse / meat facility, meat storage facility was a thing. See, I could... trying to figure out, like... meet... we just do this, and we can still have the parking lots like I was talking about, which I would like to do. We can't store here because it won't push through a road cargo station. It would have to be picked up and then driven over. At which point, might as well do, you know, forklifts. Though it takes up space, I suppose, is the one difference. Let's see, put the warehouse down over here, put the food over there. Crossroads over. Like, what we could do maybe is... this kind of a thing? No. Let's see. Okay, so if we do... Just planning over here, folks. Because again, I want to see this stuff get built while I'm doing our tour. So if we pop this down over here, not auto building, and we pop this down over here, we get our meat storage back. Which is where? Meat storage, food and crop related. Oh, you can see these like gaps and stuff have been introduced as well, which I like. But it will take some getting used to because it's a little different from before. Meat storage, there we go. Let's pop you down over here. Get that factory connection like so. Wonder if I wanna just to make it a little bit easier here for me. There we go. Pop you down over here. We have our forklift garage potentially over here. Right. Well, I think I would rather see this get positioned over here. A little too tight up there. What about like this? That won't fly, okay. Oh, it's gotta let me connect this. No, you don't like that? Alright, fair enough. Fair enough. Go ahead and pop you down over here. Go ahead and pop you down over here. Because then what we can do is we can get a warehouse down over here, a little bit further out, I suppose. What about our forklift garage? I was thinking we could demolish this a little bit. Forklift garage down over here, like so, maybe. Very tight, eh? Very tight. I prefer this to this, I think. We could adjust the road as well, of course. Right, we could go ahead and demolish this. Get the forklift garage planted down like so. Flatten the train a little bit. So, like so. Keep that road connection. Like here, and like here. That's the actual cargo station, so that's where vehicles actually need to come to. That hasn't changed. Where is our warehouse? Storage. Warehouse. Yeah. Sorry, I was just wondering if there was anything else new down here. Warehouse could be up over here. Yeah, it's a little weird though. I'm not sure if this will work. Put it like so. The reason why I'm not sure if it'll work or not is because what happens? Alright, let's go and put that down. So vehicle comes through, drops stuff off over here, and then forklifts have to come and drag it over. Is one forklift garage really enough for that, or do I want to go ahead and get a modded forklift garage? One of these bigger ones. Probably want one of these bigger ones. Get rid of you here. One of these bigger ones in here. Okay. Demolish these roads a little bit. Not the end of the world. just so we have more, you know, goods moving at any given time. I think it makes most sense. Road comes straight out there, not a problem. Connect over here, again, that's the important one. The road cargo station. Yeah, okay, so that should work. Now, what about meat? Meat gets dropped over here. Can a... Oh man, I forgot to pause. Hit play at one point, forgot to pause. It's not the end of the world. Can a forklift go up over here? It can definitely get up over here, and then from there it should be able to get down over here. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. That should be fine. And then from the meat storage down over here, it can get up to over here. Yeah, so that should actually work quite fine. Well, look at how much larger that footprint is all of a sudden. Look at just how much larger that footprint is all of a sudden. I don't like the shape of this curve, by the way. I just let it be known. I do not appreciate that shape, but there's not much we can do about it, unfortunately. Unless... Not tried this. Can I? Oh, yes, I can. Oh, thank God. Yep. Go ahead and commission that as well. You can use the scroll wheel to adjust the curvature. There we go. Okay, that's beautiful. That's much better. And it does leave room for parking lots over here as well. So if we wanted to build modded parking lots, we absolutely could. Yeah, fantastic. Drop them in, stack, you know, a couple of them. We'll figure that out. But that I think we can wait on. That we can wait on. Though I do need to connect this itself. Oh, we have the road connection over here already. There's just 2 ways to connect. Okay, fair enough. Wow. All right, that was a lot. But yeah, so we've got quite a bit of housing over here. We've got education up there. We've got education down here. We're gonna actually have a shopping center up over here as well. I saw some questions asked about that. I could have put this shopping center in a more centralized location, and that way more people would have access to it. But that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to actually have multiple shopping centers, because I'm a little worried at having a situation like this, where we're trying to fulfill the needs of way too many people at one shopping center. So everybody flocks to it when there is food available, and the next thing you know, the food's gone, and before the next delivery arrives, a bunch of people are leaving still hungry. So that's the thinking there. I'm actually going to have a second shopping center and like a repeat of this block over here up over there. Now what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go ahead and connect you and you and you. And that should allow us to see the beginning of construction over here. Like, these guys are not they're not suspended. You're not suspended either. They're all connected. I could just as easily... I think this will work, and if it doesn't, I guess we'll have to demolish all of it. But this should work. I really hope I'm not making a mistake over here. Continue your construction as well, and your construction too. Yeah, this is all good. This is the shopping center. So I just want to double check this. Into the road cargo station over here. That's not a necessary connection, I suppose, but it's fine. The road cargo station, cars will come here, drop stuff off, and that stuff then gets forklifted to the meat storage and forklifted to the warehouse in terms of food, clothes, electronics, meat, and then it all gets forklifted to the shopping center, where people arrive through this road over here or through these footpaths over here, and they will all have a wonderful time eating and wearing clothes and listening to music on their radios and watching TVs. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, fantastic. This is good to go. Gonna go ahead and get this construction office working on it, and hopefully we don't live to regret this decision. I just want to get this one assigned. Everything else can auto-assign. I don't mind. Road connection doesn't exist. How not? Where do we... Oh, you know what? This is why. Damn, there we go. Glad I checked. Glad I checked. Now we can assign. Make sure we get those schools done as well. I want to make sure these are done as well. It's also been pointed out that the students don't have access to amenities. You're absolutely right. I need to work on that. Probably get like a small shopping center back over here or something as we rework the delivery of power to this extension over here. What else do we want to do? We will be renaming these zones, by the way. I've got some great suggestions for Colada as well, but I'll be saving that for next session, I think. Let's get the shopping center done as well. Sure. Road connection doesn't exist. Oh, because this is broken. Okay, fair enough. You know, let's leave that for later. We might auto-build. Actually, you know what? Go ahead and get this road How do we want to connect you? Straight across this way. How about pull down over here and over here? Just trying to figure out the best way to join this to have it get built. You know what? We'll leave this for later. We might even just auto-build all this to make sure that people's needs are met as soon as they start moving into the area. All right, cool. So with that done, we can now move on to our tour. Nice way to maybe cap off the session, I guess, rather than start. Yeah, we'll see all this stuff getting built. This is all good. This is all good. We talked about tourism. All right, cool. Folks, let's hit play on the day before my birthday in 1998. A while to think about. We're gonna hit play. We're gonna go ahead and hop in to the presidential vehicle, if you want to call it that. I suppose we're going to follow this vehicle. Oh, by the way, you can see the this screen has changed as well quite a bit. I quite like the new layout. But yes, I'm not going to spoil what the tour includes, but we should be seeing a little bit of everything, and I will be your tour guide. I am so excited for this. Let's go ahead and follow the vehicle. Make sure we are following you, and let's begin. Let's begin. And we begin, of course, at the beginning. It is really wild to take this road up over here and think about 150 episodes ago. That is on average 1 hour per episode, sometimes even longer. We've had a couple of, I think, episodes an hour and a half longer. So think back on how many days that equates to, right? Think back on this journey we have had together over so very long. We go right back to the coal mine at Party Power. This was the nexus of the nation when it began. This humble coal mine, from where power was generated. With whose coal power was generated at the coal power plant that we're just about to drive by over here. And then, of course, we have all the processing and stuff that was added over time as well, to meet the ever-growing demands of our ever-growing nation. To make sure power was constantly delivered, we had to make sure that we were constantly delivering coal to this coal power plant. And so many times we went back and forth with trying to find that perfect balance between how much coal we have and the number of workers coming over here, and how much coal was going elsewhere for other purposes. I think we're making our way over now to just kind of tour through these coal processing plants. And I believe we're going to drive on over to Trainwreck. Now, Trainwreck was not one of the earliest things we built. It was among them, but the first thing we built was Veterinkograd, of course. But it's nice to take a look at where all the some of the core needs of the people get fulfilled, and that is very much at Trainwreck, where food and meat and alcohol, let's not forget, all get produced. And this was quite the struggle for us, an early experience in the in the intricacies of developing trains for our nation. As we drive through Trainwreck over here, you can see we've got the food processing off in the distance. This car's actually going a lot faster than it did the first time we did our tour. It's kind of wild, because we're already at the little expansion we did to Trainwreck to provide workers to the area. As we loop around over here, this is those little small mid-rises, I suppose, that we established here to help provide more workers to the food production, particularly at Trainwreck. But not just the food production, of course, the chemical plants, the fabric production, the clothing production as well. Let's not forget, these are all important aspects of Trainwreck. And like I said, these Trainwreck really supplies Veterinkograd with all of the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. And of course, you can see the expansion to the expansion over there off in the distance to the right there, where we wanted to get some more workers involved for everything that's happening, not just here, but also where we are headed next. And oh man, it's crazy how densely packed this area actually is, with trees and roads and people. I believe we're coming up on the fabric factory and the clothing factory over here. But now we're going to loop around and I think make our way over to this little traffic stop over here. And take a look at that. Not a traffic jam, just a small stop because a tram, I believe, had to go through. But of course, from time to time, traffic's going to can't even call it a backup. It was so quick. You can see off in the distance our next destination, though with today's tour, we're taking a brand new road to it, one of the newer roads of this beautiful republic, one that allows fuel, which is one of the newer resources that we produce at our republic, to be quickly delivered from the lakefront over here, or from the riverfront over here, to the rest of the nation on this side of the river. So this, again, is all brand spanking new. Our port over here that brings fuel and bitumen across the river from the, quote-unquote new cities and the new developments down south. But of course, as we drive past that, we return to another one of our eternal struggles, though it seems to have been put behind us now. The old farmlands. Quite a joy to drive by these old farmlands, a constant expansion in the early days of the Republic, building more and more agro farms and building more and more fields and making sure this was all working smoothly. A little bit of gravel road over here as well to slow us down a little bit as we tour around these grain silos and behind this truck that is hopefully full of crops being delivered to this silo over here. As we drive past that, you can see again the train station over here that delivers crops and livestock over to Train Rexky to be turned into meat and food. And we are here at the livestock farm itself as well, another important core of our nation. So we're really seeing where all those needs get met, or I guess where they get where meeting those needs begins as we drive through here before we head on over to Veterinkagrad. I'm going to take a little quick stop over here at the gas station, now happily fueled by our own nation's fuel, mind you. Going to go ahead and take a quick stop over here, gas up a little bit, and then make our way back out. Look at that. Can you smell the freshness of the Republic's fuel? As we leave past the smell of the Republic's manure and fertilizer and crops and really future as well, because there is no future without food. But yeah, it is wild being back over here, and it's hard to separate the new developments versus the old ones among the fields, because this has been growing constantly and looks like it's just a visual glitch, fair enough. But yeah, this has been an area that has been constantly in development, and you can see we've got you can see that agro farm way off in the distance over there next to that grain silo. Those are relatively recent constructs. Relatively, we've been doing this for so long, everything's relative. As we continue down over here, this was not the newest. We're just gonna drive under this truck over here, don't worry, they have a perfect amount of clearing. This was among the newer ones, but I believe it was actually there during our previous tour as well. This is the outermost extents of the farms over here, the fields over here that we're about to reach, and sort of the outermost extents of our nation on this edge. And take a quick stop at the field over here where we can frolic and just enjoy being among the crops. And then we're going to make our way back towards Veterinkagrad, I believe, is next in line over here. And you can see, look at the production capabilities of our nation over here. So many trucks full of crops delivering to the grain silos. Fantastic to look at. And off in the distance there, we can see some harvesting going on as well. Again, our food supply to Veterinkagrad, which you can see off in the distance over there, has become relatively consistent, and we continue to develop the equivalent capabilities across the river as well, which you can also see off in the distance over there. You can see the grain silo where crops grown on this side of the river get delivered to via ship, of course. Again, absolutely wild developments between episode 100 and 150, because episode 100, I believe, was the last time we did a tour. Now, the sun is setting on this leg of our tour, I suppose, and like I said, we're going to make our way over to Veterinkagrad, and off in the distance, look at that, you can see the red and white smokestack over at Party Power. Look at the distance we have covered over the course of this journey, and look off in the distance as well. I love, actually the plateaus and stuff look absolutely brilliant from this angle. You can see, like, off in the distance, we've got the housing, the mid-rises I was talking about over at Train Rexky, and then right behind that, you can see, I believe that's the food factory at Train Rexky as well. And slightly to the right, I believe those are some more food factories, because we are driving by right now this is the fuel that we're going to drive by right now, the fuel storage. Yeah, so we're looking at off in the distance there more food factories. You can see how intently and intensely our people work to bring those basic needs for the citizens. We're going to make our way over now as night falls. We're going to drive back towards the city. What a ride, actually. What a long ride it's been already. Just to see the early days of the nation. Trainwreck and again, of course, these are all, it's a blend now. Trainwreck is relatively old, especially the central parts of Trainwreck relatively old. But, you know, the fields are a mixed bag in terms of their age. These tracks also that we're stopping at or crossing right now over here, they're also very old. Their finessing and their functionality is new. And let's not forget our first iteration of the tracks at Trainwreck, where the name was born. Wow, what an adventure that was. I don't even remember which episode that was in, but that was a long time ago, and I'm glad to have those issues behind us as we finally kind of come to grips with this fantastic rail technology. We're going to drive our way, like I said, over to Veteringrad right now, driving past the distillery that's now behind us over there, and driving past the warehouse where clothing gets stored, where we once used to export clothes from, in fact. We're going to make our way over now past all of these construction offices that were also relatively recent constructions. I mean, they were there for episode 100 as well, but I just want to touch on the fact that a lot of the stuff that you've seen on the tour so far was all built using, using money as opposed to the hard labor of our citizens. The valuable and the priceless passion and labor output of our workers and the resources of the Soviet Republic. See where it comes from. But yeah, so a lot of the stuff was built, and then we built those construction offices when we were down to just 2 million rubles in the bank. We wanted to recover, obviously, so we started building things, using our own people's capabilities and labor. But yes, over here again, once more, we are driving by the coal processing plants, the coal power plant, and I believe now we're going to make our way to some of the newer industries. Well, I say new, it's all relative. But we're going to make our way over to the hilltops over here to take a look at, well, first of all, that glorious star as we drive by it, but also take a look at the concrete plants, to take a look at the steel mill, which you'll be able to, I think, get a glimpse of to the left over there. Yeah, you can see that steel mill over there as we drive by. But yeah, the concrete plants, the newly constructed prefab panels as well, or the prefab plants we won't necessarily be able to catch a view of. But here we are driving to the first iron mine and iron processing facilities over at Rustinsky. Ironically, perhaps, gathering rust at this point, not as productive as Rustinsky once was, but that is because we no longer rely on it as much as we once needed to. It is a rather weak source of iron ore over here, but yeah, this was our first sort of experimentation with a battery of processing plants and rather complex conveyor belt systems as well. But, I talk it down a little bit, but even though Rustinsky, yes, gathers rust, it is essential to the functioning of the steel mill and the mechanical components factory that you can see off in the distance there as we arrive over here at the concrete plant, I believe this is. You can see off to the left over there as well our prefab panel factory that was relatively recently built. It's newer than the concrete plant and all, and this was all happening, again, to help us facilitate construction, of our own. As we make our way down now, again, driving past the rather intricate workings of all these interconnected factories and all their needs and wants and demands. Further now, going back past that coal power plant that supplied power to our entire nation for so very, very long, and also is a constant source of income as well. We are exporting power, so it is not only powering our nation, but also our economy. Up over this bridge, which was actually again, relatively recent construction. We did not build this bridge until, much after this road and rail situation existed over here, and it was built to avoid that, sort of constant stoppage that happens when train and roadways intersect. New football fields over here as well to meet the needs of some of the, oh dear, look over that way. Some of the oldest housing in the nation. This here represents the birth of our glorious nation. There's a little barbecue off in the distance over there, celebrating episode 150, and the first statue I believe we ever put down as well. We just drove by over there, and you can see off in the distance as we make our way around the bend over here, headed towards the riverfront, I believe, going through Veteringrad. And again, you can see this massive train station that we're driving by right now to the right over here. This is actually a modded train station to facilitate the number of passengers that flow through from here up to the steel mill, up to Ristinsky, and again, provide that bedrock of our economy many, many, many years ago when we needed to export steel and mechanical components to lift us up from, what felt to many like doom, but we knew it was all intentional. Now here we drive by a, again, relatively young shopping center as we make our way, yes, to a small sort of a small extension, let's call it, that happened to Veterinkograd, our capital over here, to house many of the excited young graduates and all that needed a place to stay and needed work to do. So we wanted to make sure, of course, that we met their needs by expanding our city even further. An expansion that we will perhaps expand upon in the near future as well, as our glorious nation continues to gain more and more loyal citizens. But let's make our way away from this little pocket of Veterinkograd over here and this little space from where a lot of our export and trade happens. Again, this was our initial economic hub. You can see to the right there our initial sort of trade partners off in the distance over there. Always fun to kind of drive by. And now we're going to make our brief visit to the radio station and the TV stations that were the first to bring entertainment and joy and news of the nation and its various plans and developments. You can see the radio station and the TV station over here, supplying many jobs to the people, supplying much joy as well. Jobs and joy as we make our way to some of these hospitals and the shopping centers and the schools of Veterinkograd as well. Again, a very interesting block over here, very interesting layout experimentation over here. But that is the old city, and you can see how many evolutions have taken place there as we now drive past the beautiful sports stadium over here, where our glorious nation, of course, brings victory after victory as we drive across one of the marvels of engineering in our nation. In fact, two marvels of engineering. Not only this glorious bridge that we'll be driving across ourselves, but the bridge we can gaze upon across the way over here as well, that brings trains from one side of the nation to the other across this river. What an experience this was. Building this, again, this was completely built by our people using our resources, and we had to adjust it a couple of times as well, if I recall correctly. But what an adventure this was, and you can see the welcome to the new city over here as we first travel through this industrial sector, of course. Taking a look at the initial investment to really Uprisinggrad. It all leads to, of course, Brixtonia, and it leads to Uprisinggrad and Petrolgrad. But it all started here, across the river, ensuring that construction was happening okay, that we had all the required construction material. We're going to drive past, in fact, the storage depots for some of those initial construction materials we were bringing from across the river, as on the right side, and I guess now we're flanked on both sides by the initial fields, and the much more rural experience provided by this space over here across the river. And you can see just how hard at work our citizens are, again, ensuring here that the people of Uprisinggrad are constantly fed and clothed, and and that we meet their needs as well. Of course, not just Uprisinggrad, but Brixtonia as well, the proud, I suppose we could call it the town as opposed to village, the town of Brixtonia, that we'll be arriving at shortly as well. But here again, you can see some of the newer developments with food production, especially with regards to that agro farm over there, and some of these factories you can see just at the top of the hill over here, which we might make our way towards as we drive past that tractor that was getting a little adventurous. Yes, let's make our way up over here, and you can see this was crucial, meeting those needs I was talking about earlier, this industrial level of food production over here. You can see these grain silos, you can see livestock farms as well, and you can see this little fire station we're going to stop at temporarily. That, of course, you got to take a moment to thank the hardworking first responders and all that. But we've got our agro farm over here. You can see the food factories, these silos over here, the livestock farms as well. Essential to uplifting both Uprisinggrad and Uprisinggrad and Brixtonia. This was a major part of the solution here of a problem that was plaguing us for quite a while. And there's that distribution office over here as well that distributes those very same goods across this side of the nation as we drive on into Brixtonia. Brixtonia, named after the construction material that features primarily across the board over here. Lots of mid and low rises, small houses, again, going for that really organic feel with Brixtonia over here, making it a challenge for ourselves to work around the terrain rather than just blow the sides of mountains constantly as we develop this space over here. And again, using smaller restaurants, smaller barns, smaller shopping centers to provide for the needs of the people over here. A very interesting experience, a very interesting experiment, and a very fun space as well, I would say, as we drive towards the small fire station over here and the small bus stop over here as well, where we can see actually another citizen of this nation driving in their own private vehicle. Perhaps a private vehicle that was built in this very nation. So why not let's head over to see that vehicle production and how that works, because that is one of the newest accomplishments of the nation as we go past this beautiful statue and we go past these beautiful stars as well. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. But let's make our way over to that vehicle production region, we should call it, because it is quite the complex. It is quite the set of facilities, and it was quite an enjoyable experience establishing not just the station or the storage facilities for these vehicles that you can see lined up over here in beautiful red, but just establishing the entire sort of functionality of this space, making sure that resources were arriving properly, making sure that the forklift facilities were working properly, making sure they could be daisy chained, making sure that we were bringing in all manner of goods. There's so much, and really these facilities here were what birthed the need for many of what we, or much of what we see down at Petrolgrad. Right? Let's not forget that, and let's also not forget how smoothly the trains run over here as well. Complex additions that work rather fantastically, where others might have had some doubt as we drive by the car dealers over here. A clear indication of a booming economy. We now have cars that we can actually just sell to foreigners. Perhaps something we should invest in moving forward, of course, shortly after this tour is done, perhaps. But let us go ahead and drive down this main road over here past the massive skyscrapers of Uprisinggrad, the namesake of Uprisinggrad, as we also see the bridge now to our left over here that we built a long time ago, the little highway, the miniature highway, the experimental highway ahead of us over here. But let's go ahead and take another quick, right turn, because we are using one-way roads over here, and a quick left turn, little U-turn action over here, back to the one-way road on the other side, as we make our way now down to Petrolgrad, on the top of which you can see fuel being transported using this kind of highway, this bypass road over here. Again, so wonderful to see it in action, so wonderful to see our doubts set aside as the sun is set aside, and as we make our way now towards the massive tunnel that also took forever to build. This tunnel took us forever to build because we built, I think, most of it with our people, and I think at the end we decided to get a little bit of an investment going in, a bit of a financial investment. But through these mountains we go, these massive mountains, and to the other side where, of course, the mines of Moria were the first investment to ensure that coal was being produced so that the power plant you can see at the top left corner over there was receiving power, making sure that we were providing power to Uprisinggrad locally rather than having to bring it from across the river from Beterinkagrad and from Party Power. But yes, here, I mean, this is all relatively new. These coal processing plants to our right over here, the coal mines to our left, the aggregate storages that you can kind of hopefully catch a glimpse of as we do this nighttime tour of these rather heavy industrial sectors over here. As we make our way now to some of the newest facilities, you can see across the way over here, we've got all of the oil and fuel and bitumen production happening in this region over here, folks. All of those lights in the distance, not only producing oil and fuel and bitumen, as I was saying, but also chemicals from which we get plastics, from which we get fabric, from which we get clothes. So much happening at Petrolgrad here as we drive away from the some of those new constructs you can see off in the distance. And again, You can see the small hot spots off in the distance there as well, where the oil itself is actually brought up from the ground. Once more, into this tunnel we go as we cross this deep mountain sort of path, I suppose. And as the sun rises, actually, this is how long this tour has been. It has lasted 2 entire sort of cycles of the sun. I don't know what day it is, but we'll find out when the tour ends. But before the tour can end, of course, there are a few more regions to check out as we make our way outside of the tunnel and take a right turn over here and make our way to some of the new construction that is happening, the latest developments that are happening in our nation. A brand new university. Or, you know, perhaps the driver will take a sharp left over here to take us deeper into Uprising Grad first and show us some of these beautiful buildings up close. And we can also see more of these private vehicles that our citizens drive up close. And now we shall make our way over towards some of the latest additions. The new university, the medical university, one that we've been waiting on for a very long time and we finally established. We wanted to make sure, of course, that we had, you know, proper training for the professors before we established a university from where they could teach. So that had to be done first. All timed perfectly, naturally. But yes, we have the some of the most populous parts of our nation coming up now. As you can see, a very active and efficient public transit system, as well as private transportation as well, as we, yes, make our way over to what will soon be a tourist hub, as you can see as we drive by over here. And you can see off in the distance what we were talking about just moments ago, our medical university, our brand new TV station serving the people at Uprising Grad and Brixtonia, and of course our brand new radio station over here as well to the left, serving the same people. You can see we've got the smartest of students taught by the smartest of professors at this medical university, living smartly at this set of hostels over here, as we drive our way over to one of the perhaps most downplayed major accomplishments of our nation. As we drive past this parking lot, look at that beautiful parking lot, as we drive past it and move up this little hill over here to reveal, of course, a massive infrastructure project, this highway that joins Uprising Grad and the soon-to-be renamed regions down south over here with Zavodsk 1337. This has facilitated the construction of much down south. This has facilitated the transportation, both public and private, for our people. You can see a bus full of hard-working citizens driving down to the construction sites where we are further developing the residential capacity of Uprising Grad as it grows further and further, as our nation grows stronger and stronger. But take a look at that. Just like that, we find ourselves at Zavodsk, the initial sort of industrial area across the river that we were talking about as we came here, that ensures that all the construction over here can be done locally. And now we're actually going to drive by that marvel of engineering once more and make our way back to the capital to, of course, end the conversation on the most glorious of notes, because, you know, a tour can't just end with a lackluster drive through an industrial area. That is, of course, a place we've already visited. We've seen it before. We have to end with something that is quite the highlight. You know, we've seen now from where everything comes, where everything is mined, where everything is produced and processed, and now we drive towards what brings it all together, what unites it all for a glorious past, present, and future for our nation. You can see, of course, folks, what I'm talking about just ahead of us and to the right, just by that absolutely beautiful statue, raising its sword to the sky in defiance, surviving through the years when many said that doom was coming, when many said that the end of our era was nigh. No, we have survived, we continue to do so, and we continue to celebrate year after year this glorious Soviet Republic at the foot of this statue, by these flames over here, and at, of course, none other than the party headquarters. Such a glorious nation we have built together, folks. Over 150 episodes. It is quite the adventure. It has been for me. And I hope it's been for you as well. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of our nation as we make our way back to the beginning of the tour. But it is quite wild to see just how big things have gotten, and just how big things this game allows to get. You know what I mean? From small problems with buses and trucks not delivering things on time, to bigger problems of trains getting stuck, to, you know, creating an entire set of factories that build our own cars that we're now talking about exporting on planes that we'll be developing soon. What an experience it has been, and I really hope you guys have enjoyed not just the experience up to this point, but this tour specifically as well. And I hope you all are excited for everything that lies ahead of us in this beautiful nation. Folks, this fire may have been extinguished, but our fire will never be extinguished. Let's make sure that this presidential vehicle returns to its depot over here. And if you want to take a quick look actually at what our journeys included, you can kind of see it from up on high over here, and you can see everything we looked at, everything we explored during this trip over here. You can see, you know, going all the way to Rostinsky. Well, you know, we started up over here, of course, went down over here towards Trainreksky, where we visited this little loop over here, drove by it rather quickly, but we had a chance to take a look at everything that was happening down over here. It took us days, it took us a whole month to do that trip. That's ridiculous. But we came down over here, you know, to see these new ports over here as well, and everything that they are supporting, I suppose. Coming down to the fields over here at Farminsky, of course, as well, checking out some of these farms and all of the various again, goods and raw resources that are being produced down over here, making our way back up through Trainreksky over after that towards our cement plant over here. I think I called it a concrete plant. This is our concrete plant. Nope, that's our silo. This is our concrete plant over here. And then making our way to Rostinsky. Back from Rostinsky, then going down over through and past the steel mill area, past Veterinkograd, through you know, the again, Sazalis area, which is, again, one of our primary trade partners, looping back around through the school and hospital we talked about previously, making our way across this bridge down through, you know, past Zavodsk, through Ruralinsky, down over to the newer food production facilities over at Morgrainsky, then further down through the vehicle production facilities. Well, we did make a little stop over at this bus stop, let's not forget, visiting Brixtonia, before we headed on over to the vehicle production facilities, down through Uprisinggrad, over to Petrolgrad, taking a quick look at these brand new facilities over here, before making our way back up top through the heart of Uprisinggrad momentarily, before making our way, of course, to the newest of new facilities where construction continues to progress. Of course, we didn't want to tour the construction sites. We don't want to interrupt our citizens hard at work, obviously. They're trying to grow the nation just as we are, so let's not interrupt them. And so we turned up, went past this, you know, additional marvel of engineering, I must say, and then back across the bridge to our capital headquarters, then back on over where it all began. What a journey. That was 30 minutes, that tour. If I've got my math right, that was 30 minutes, that tour. And in a very comfortable and beautiful vehicle too, I might add. But I do hope y'all enjoyed that. I certainly did. It's fun looking back at our accomplishments. It's fun looking at what we've, you know, done and how things have developed, I think at least. And it's fun as well, like I was saying, to think about what comes next. Obviously, this construction is ongoing. We do have the fire station over here built already. Good. We've got the hospital over here being built now as well. It looks like resources are being brought over to these construction sites. Excellent. Hopefully, we're going to see a fair bit more brought over as we tackle some of the other aspects. Like we were talking about getting food over here working. Obviously, we want to get this up and running properly. And then perhaps we do auto-build all of this and then move on to tourism. But, of course, that's not happening today, folks. That is all for today's session. I hope you enjoyed. Again, I know we didn't necessarily make too much, we didn't do too much city planning this session. We did talk about our plans for tourism, and we didn't place anything with regards to that, but we do have a bit of an idea as to like where we want to put our airports down, where we want to put some of our tourist facilities down, what kinds of tourist facilities. We've also discussed where our next mine has to be, the bauxite mines down over here to produce aluminium, eventually turn it into aluminium to build airplanes of our own. There's a lot, actually, you know what, I take it back. We did a lot of city planning. Just because we didn't put stuff down doesn't mean we didn't do planning. We did quite a bit of planning, so I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all enjoyed the look at the tourism update and everything that's coming with that. It's super exciting stuff, super dense stuff as well. I cannot wait to explore how all of that comes together for our existing nation. And I hope you all, again, of course, enjoyed that tour at the end. Folks, that is where we're going to call it a session, though. That's number 150. But we cannot rest on our laurels, of course. A massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons who have been supporting this channel on a monthly basis. Y'all have kept us alive and running smoothly month after month. Thank you very much for that, of course. And a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time. Das Vidania.